Round 1 of the 2023 NRL season was one of the best, if not the best, opening round to a season that at least I remember in my lifetime. Absolutely phenomenal. But when it came to the results, we were let down by the reigning premiers, the Penrith Panthers, and those bloody West Tigers. Tim Sheens, what were you thinking, bruz? Which gave myself a first round score of 6 out of 8. Now, I am leading all my tipping comps, but we are at a percentage of 75%. We were living at about 60 to 70% last year, so hopefully we can stay put. I would love to average around 6 tips around, but this week I think it's going to be a bit more difficult than last week. A few upsets last week, including the Dolphins, but I was lucky enough to have called that one. But 2023 is going to be a huge year on the channel. I've had videos the past 2 days. Go and check them out if you haven't already. We're going to try and be uploading every second day. But let's get straight into our tips for round 2 of the 2023 NRL season. Well, we opened round 1 with a Thursday night match of the round, and this one promises to be just as epic. The Penrith Panthers host the South Sydney Rabbitohs, and what is becoming a little bit of a rivalry, the 2021 Grand Final rematch. For the Panthers, Scott Sorensen drops out. For the Bunnies, they lose both Jai Arrow and Tavita Totola. Latrell Mitchell has been named to play, and that is what is going to help me tip the South Sydney Rabbitohs in this highly anticipated fixture. I know it's crazy to think that Penrith are going to lose back-to-back, technically 3 games in a row at home, considering their near-perfect record over the past few years at Bluebet Stadium. But South Sydney looked so good last week despite missing 2 of their better forwards in that game. I just think we need to look at what's actually going on rather than what Penrith have built their own legacy over the past few years. The reputation they have similar to Melbourne. We saw how clunky they were. They're a new side. They're missing 2 of the best players in their positions in the competition. They also had such a short preseason, which not only affected their starting 13 and their bench, but they had 31 players go to the World Cup out of a top 30. So they're going to take some time, I think, Penrith, while South Sydney, they have pretty much the same team as last year. They were one of the more impressive sides last weekend against the Sharkies. So I'm going the upset straight off the bat. I think the South Sydney Rabbitohs get the job done, and Penrith are going to start 0-2, which sounds crazy, but after their performance last weekend, I just don't think they're going to be able to score as many points as South Sydney. And what about this for a Friday 6 p.m. slot? The Eels host the Sharks. This is going to be an excellent game of football. The Sharks are without Nico Hines once again, however. So for that reason, I'm going to take the Parramatta Eels. They looked good last weekend. They probably should have closed that game out, in my opinion. They were the far better side than the Melbourne Storm. Just Mitchell Moses and Dylan Brown couldn't clinch the game. I thought Josh Hodgson was pretty impressive, and I think that the Sharks without Nico Hines might just not have the class to get over the top of the Parramatta Eels. One of these clubs is going to start 0-2, and I think the fact the Eels will be at home gets them over the line. So I see the Eels knocking off the Sharks in what should be another excellent game of rugby league. Then the Friday night main event, the Broncos coming off their famous round 1 win, taking on the Cowboys, who for the first half were probably the most impressive side in round 1, but fell off towards the back end. Reece Walsh makes his Brisbane Broncos debut, and this might be too many upsets too early on in the round. However, the betting has it in favour of the Broncos, and that is who I am tipping. The Broncos return to Suncorp with their confidence sky high after that win over the Penrith Panthers. I think the addition of Reece Walsh will add so much class. Selwyn Cobbo was pretty good, but he can do everything he did at fullback last weekend on the wing anyway. I still think the Broncos have plenty to fix when it comes to their attack, but I just think that being at home in Suncorp, it's going to be wet conditions. I think they will have enough to get past the North Queensland Cowboys. I think that they're due for a win over the Cowboys. It's been some time now. They want to rectify last year's embarrassing loss at Suncorp to the Cowboys. So I've got the Brisbane Broncos winning. It doesn't surprise me if this one goes to Golden Point. Saturday kicks off with the Roosters hosting the Warriors. The Roosters forwards get decimated even more. Matt Lodge missing this one, and the Warriors coming in after their win over the Newcastle Knights. But unfortunately, Warriors fans, I can't see it getting over the Sydney Roosters in this one. I think that the Warriors can definitely match them, if not beat them, in the forward pack. But I just think the Roosters have too much class. I still have plenty of question marks around Shaun Johnson. I don't think he played that well last week. In fact, I think he was very lucky they won last week, because if not, I think Shaun Johnson is a chance of missing the side for this week's game. I think the Roosters just have too much class. The Warriors can do what the Dolphins did and just ambush them in the middle. They've got the class to do that in their forward pack, but I just don't see the Roosters losing their first two. They're back at home. It's going to be a big crowd there at this new Sydney Football Stadium. So I've got the Roosters winning, and I think they get the job done, 13+. Middle game of the Saturday, the Dolphins flying high, taking on the Raiders in Redcliffe at the brand new KO Stadium. And you know what? I'm on the fish, baby. Year of the Fins. I'm taking the Dolphins to beat the Canberra Raiders. The Raiders, they're a one-half team still. That second half against the Cowboys was quite impressive, but the slow start cost them. And if they do that to these Dolphins, who are going to be up once again, they're at KO Stadium, the first game ever in Redcliffe, gives me similar vibes to last week. It's going to be hot. The Raiders are going to be flying up to Queensland once again to take on the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins get the job done. I think the Fins go 2-0, which is absolutely insane to think about. Some people thought they were going to get their win for a while, but I just think they proved last week they've got the forward pack. The Raiders have a terrific forward pack as well, but I just see the Dolphins getting the win over the Canberra Raiders. The main event on the Saturday, the Storm taking on the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs, probably the most disappointing team of round one. Reed Marnie was absolutely brilliant, but the Storm are without Cameron Munster. But even without Munster, I think they're just too much class. I think the Dogs are going to take some time to build their cohesiveness, to build their combinations. I think it's very hard to beat Melbourne in Melbourne, no matter what side they play. I know they are lacking that superstar utility that they had with Nico Hines and Brandon Smith back when they were winning premierships only a few years ago. But I still think Harry Grant, Jerome Hughes, Nick Meaney had a career best game in round one. I think they've got enough. However, the Dogs forward pack could definitely take it to the Storm, but I've got the Storm winning at home for the first time in 2023 against the Bulldogs. Sunday kicks off with some Jackson Hastings revenge. The Tigers taking on the Knights. Still no Johnny Bateman, no Adam Elliott. One of these teams is going to be in some serious pressure when they start the season 0-2. I tipped the Tigers last week, and I'm not making that mistake again. I'm tipping the Newcastle Knights to get the job done. They're going to be playing for their boy Jackson Hastings, and they just impressed me a bit more than the Tigers did last week. They're probably the second most disappointing team of round one, the Tigers. Please let Abby Coruscant start, Sheensy. Please, just don't muck around again, brother. But I'm taking the Newcastle Knights. I think they get the job done, and I think they get the job done close. There's going to be plenty of aggression, plenty of effort in this one, because whichever side starts the season 0-2 is going to be under some serious pressure, but I'm taking the Newcastle Knights. And then the final game of round one, we finally get to see the Dragons in action as they host the Gold Coast Titans. I've made my feelings on the Dragons pretty clear. If you think they're going to be able to win one game this year, it's going to be up against the Titans. Now, Kieran Foran has been named. Wouldn't surprise me if he misses out. And unfortunately, well, I like to beat this game up. I think it comes down to as simple as that. If Kieran Foran plays, I've got the Titans winning. Without him, I think the Dragons can get the W. But this is a tipping. I'm not here to sit on the fence. I'm going to tip the Gold Coast Titans. They were pretty impressive last week, and I have a lot of concerns over the Dragons. They looked like they were bored in the charity match before the season even started. I've got the feeling they're just waiting for Anthony Griffin to move on. So I'm tipping the Gold Coast Titans at the Gong to upset the Dragons. There you go. Round 2 tips are in the books. I'm taking the Rabbitohs over the Panthers, the Eels over the Sharks, the Broncos over the Cowboys, the Roosters over the Warriors, the Dolphins over the Raiders, the Storm over the Bulldogs, the Knights over the Tigers, and the Titans over the Dragons. Ladies and gentlemen, let me know, do you agree with my round 2 tips? Drop your round 2 tips in that comment section down below. Smash that like button if you enjoyed the video, guys, and subscribe if you haven't already. We're on the road to 5K. Let's try and hit it by magic round. But thank you so much for watching, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll see you in the next one.